Hi, friends. This episode of Big Blue Banter is brought to you by PrizePicks. Head on over to PrizePicks and use promo code BANTER, and they'll match up to $100 on a new deposit. Thank you and enjoy.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Today we're here and we're talking more Giants interest, players that the Giants have shown interest in, whether that be via 30 private visits, the top 30 private visits, or in this case, a veteran reporter, Aaron Wilson, who has been covering the draft for as long as I can remember following the draft, and he really doesn't give bull BS. Like, he's not a smoke guy. He's given what he's hearing and what he's seeing, and he reported heavy interest for the Giants in this prospect that we're going to talk about today. We're going offense, Nick. It's the running back position, the revamped running back position for the Giants after an era of Saquon Barkley as your dude, your lead back, the guy. It was Saquon Barkley's offense, Saquon Barkley's running back. They may be looking at this point, Nick, for a new running back to be their featured guy. Devin Singletary was signed. He's a good compliment. Maybe he's the lead this year if things work a certain way in the draft, but maybe he's not if they find someone they love in this draft. So we're talking about a running back today, and we're talking about a running back who is quote unquote drawing heavy interest from the Giants, but also not just on quote unquote and on reports, is legitimately drawing a lot of heavy interest from other teams. Top 30 visits with the Cowboys, Panthers. I was collecting teams, and I'm in the double digits of teams that have already done top 30 visits with this dude. A lot of people want to see this dude, and that dude is Trey Benson, the running back out of Florida State, who ran a 4.39 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine, despite weighing at 216 pounds. And as I talked about with Matt Wallman on our previous podcast, you've probably heard, and that Nick remembers, I used to be a speed score scout where I would look at the speed score. There were a lot of hits. This wasn't Football Outsiders created speed score. This was like way back in the day, Nick, like early draft coverage before me and you knew each other, like the 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10 range. And at the time, there were like a crazy amount of hits for their models, I think what you call it, where it's basically just took your size, your weight, and your 40-yard dash time. I used to think of it, Nick, like a physics problem, like a math physics problem in my head, where it's just like, oh, wow, this dude weighs this amount of weight, and he's coming downhill at this speed with this amount of weight. Boom, he's going to create forceman's tackles, and he's going to create yards after contact, and contact bounds is going to come into play. But, there's obviously nuance to the running back position that we've certainly taken into account, that NFL teams factor in. Pass protection as well, pass receiving, natural hands. There's so many factors playing running back. But Trey Benson, from a size speed standpoint, is certainly an interesting prospect. So let's get into him, Nick. What are your thoughts on Benson? I have a lot of stuff, too, that I want to get into, but I want to get your overall. I know you had time to now watch his tape. What are your overall thoughts? You're going to start with it. Okay, let's get into this first.
Yeah, we have the mock draftable of Trey Benson up. We did this for Chop Robinson a few podcasts ago. This is somebody 77 percentile size, just a shade under 6'1", 216 pounds. So we're talking about a big back. The length is whatever. It's not really all that important. But what is important is a 10-yard split of 152. That is 83rd percentile. Then a 40-yard dash of 4.39, which is 92nd percentile. Explosive jump, not great, similar to former Florida State running back Dalvin Cook. 37th percentile, 33.5 inch. And then his broad jump is 122. So that's solid, just over 10 feet, 74th percentile for Mr. Trey Benson. I just got done watching him actually today. So Trey Benson is very fresh in my mind. Look, man, this is somebody in college when he did catch the edge, he could house it. He clocked over 21 miles per hour several different times. But Dan, for me, he's I wanted to get your take on this. He's a little bit more of a slasher and somebody who is really elusive in a phone booth type of running back. Now, he has made safeties miss in space. I think it's more so because of the way he angles his body. And then once he decides to cut, it's that immediate acceleration to speed, gets to the second gear very quickly. That can really cut the angle of the safety off from reaching him, right? But I don't see him as that type of player like a Shady McCoy who can really just make you miss in like a phone booth. So there's a little bit of tightness in his lower body from that standpoint. But overall, I did like his tape. We'll get into a synopsis and more into the sticky wickets here in a little bit. But I just wanted to throw that at you and maybe give our early comps on this player because I kind of like my comp for him. And it's somebody who is on this mock draftable, unfortunately. Sometimes I want the comp to not be there because I think about it before, and then I go to his mock draftable and he tested similarly, and I'm like, ah, damn, everyone's going to think I'm a poser.
Well, it's interesting for a multitude of reasons. Before this podcast, I told Nick I really like my comp, or I really enjoy my comp for my player. And Nick's like, oh, he feels got excited. He's like, I think we're going to have the same comp again. Like, I love my comp too. We don't have the same comp just based on what the information you just gave me about the mock draft. Well, my guy's not on this page. But let me get into some of my early thoughts on Benson. I have a bunch of stats and stuff I want to get into, but just my synopsis from watching him play. I think if you're a team at the NFL level looking for a home run hitting possibility, and that doesn't have to just be at running back. If you're a team like the Giants, you have one home run hitter right now in my mind, and Jalen Hyatt, and you don't really have much other home run threat type of players on your team. And you had one with Barkley. You don't have that anymore. This is the type of guy I think you can put in and be like, we now have a home run hitter on our offense. It's not just that he has 4.39 speed. It's that he actually puts that to good use. And that's how I saw it on the tape. And I had a great stat of him that I'm trying to find now, which is an insane stat that I'm looking for now that I'm doing a poor job of finding, but might find in a second. And there it goes. I found it. That was me filibustering my way around bad radio, Nick. But the stat that I'm looking for is 54% of Trey Benson's career rushing yards came on runs that were 15 plus yards. So this is what he is. He's a breakaway explosive runner. And something I think about his tape, you brought up how he's like a slasher, Nick. I love how you term that because there are moments where I see him really do a great job of stopping and starting in space and then cutting off angles. And that's kind of like what's going to lead to a stat I'm going to talk about later, which is a crazy good stat about him. But it's more of that and less of like what you said, the Shady McCoy. And also, though, the problem I have with that is my biggest issue with his tape and with his game is that I think he does try to go for the home runs a little too much, despite maybe not having that Shady McCoy to him, or you can really afford to do that. Even then, I don't really love the backs that try to bounce outside and go for big plays as often as I think Trey Benson does. But it's something that I keep in mind because I think it's an interesting aspect of his game that is not necessarily something I love. Now, there's the great rep that everyone's seen against Wake Forest, or most people have seen, where he catches a screen pass and houses it for like 84 and just looks unbelievably phenomenal in that. And that goes into what we talked about before, Nick, where he has what you said. He kind of stop and starts in space and cuts it back and beats the angle of the safety. And it's really nice along the left sideline. But I think overall, from what I've seen, Nick, and you get this a lot when you watch these guys on the film because you get to see every rep, I don't think he's a natural, smooth hands catcher of the football. I think on design screens and stuff like that, he's okay.
I kind of disagree.
Okay, you like his upside as a hands catcher. Okay,
I do. So it's very limited. It's very limited because he's only caught, I think, like 36 passes. So let's give a layout of Trey Benson first. Trey Benson was, I think, a 4-star recruit, and he ended up going to Oregon. He was recruited out of, I think it was like Mississippi, Greenville, Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. I can pull it up right in front of me as I sit here and just go off the top of my head. Yeah, he was recruited out of Mississippi, and he ended up going to Oregon, and he didn't play at all his freshman season, and he ended up suffering a devastating injury December 1st of his freshman season in practice, where he tore his ACL, he tore his MCL, he tore, I think, like 2 different tendons in his meniscus.
ACL, MCL, lateral, and medial meniscus and hamstring, all torn in that.
So, and then he barely played at all at Oregon, transferred to Florida State, and he was first in a timeshare, and then he became basically the lead guy. Now, this is also somebody who has never had more than 20 carries in a game. He had 20 carries once back in 2022. So he's not used to having this huge workload. That's important, right? Because you have those devastating injuries in his past, but then he has 2 productive seasons where he really showed like, this guy did not lose any speed off of that devastating knee injury. Like I said a little bit earlier, 21 miles per hour several different times throughout his college career at Florida State. So very impressive player from that standpoint. Now, the catching, he wasn't used all that often. I thought he caught the football well, other than really one game, which was Syracuse, where he was in the sun. Both of the drops that he had, one was on an angle route over the middle of the field. The ball was thrown out in front of him. He should have caught it. It bounced off his hands and it went incomplete. And then the other one, he was in the flat. Throw was a little high. He should have caught it. It went incomplete. On both of those clips, it does look unnatural of him trying to catch the football. But if you watch every single one of his catches, you see him making back shoulder catches on wheel routes off the sidelines, getting his feet in bounds. You see him just plucking the football out of the air and then just transitioning upfield. Pretty smooth stuff for a halfback. I understand what you're talking about, Dan, and I'm imagining you probably saw that Syracuse tape, because on the Syracuse tape, you're like, dude, this is Andre Williams out here. Like, what the hell are we doing?
Looked a little Andre Williams-esque.
But it was more so just the Syracuse tape that really showed that, in my opinion.
It's interesting. And maybe I missed some of these in some of the other games I've watched of him, and that's something I'm going to go back and take a look at, because if he does have upside as a hands catcher, Nick, that does change my opinion on him a little bit. As far as like when we get to the end of this podcast, when we talk about what we want, because it makes him just a different kind of prospect to me if he also has upside in the passing game, and that goes to his route running as well. And I think as far as just like if we can focus a little on the pass game, I know you said you wanted to get to an early comp, but we'll get there for both of us. But I kind of like his upside as a pass protector. And I think there were some good moments I saw, because I just like his build a lot. Like he's very like low to the ground, like a sturdy lower half build. And this is one thing that goes into what I saw though in his tape. Like you talked about him as a slasher. I honestly feel like a lot of the time for me, what I wanted a little more was him to run behind those pads and to like use his power, use his size and power a little bit better for what I wanted. Because if he's making one cut and like squaring his body up downhill with 4.39 speed and at 216 pounds, he's gonna create more yards, gonna push a pile like a Javonte Williams type has like in the past with at UNC. But I don't see a Javonte Williams. That's not my comp, even though they have a very similar stat that I'm gonna bring up at some point on this podcast because it's a crazy stat. So that's one thing I had with him. Like I was hoping he could be a little bit more running behind his pads type powerful, but that's something that just might not be his game right now. And there are moments of it. Like you said, there's moments where you'll see a guy, and I think this goes more to how one aspect of the game I really like, Nick, which is contact balance. I think that is separate from what I was saying. And I like his contact balance because there's a bunch of times you'll see him get hit in the lower half and be able to shake it off and still like create yards after that. And that's good for sure. I just want to see more times where he's kind of squaring up and like driving downhill a little bit more often.
It's funny, man. These defenders who would try to tackle him high, they would come in high, try to tackle him. And Trey Benson
can't tackle him high.
No, and it's not even just like him running through the arm tackle. Sometimes these poor defenders like wrap him up, but Trey Benson sinks his hips so low. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen this guy kind of turn his back, turn himself to the front side of where the offense was facing, and then basically backpedal to pick up yards and just churn his feet through contact so well to where the defenders, man, they would all have to rally and try to jump on top of him, which really shows lower body strength, core strength, will, grit. And he had that stuff in spades in those situations where he scored a couple touchdowns that way too, where he hits the hole, he gets turned around, gets hit initially, gets turned around. So now he's facing basically where the quarterback is, and he's just backing his way in. And it's very difficult to tackle him when he gets into that situation because he has all that strength and that leverage advantage.
100%. And what you just said, because there's a rep against that I have in my notes that just stood out to me against Clemson, where he's running like a sweep play and he gets through that first initial hole, and then someone tries to tackle him high, and he's just like so hard to bring down when you try to tackle him high. It's not type of, and that's where, in that regard, in his ability to not go down when you try to tackle him high, that's where he reminds me most of my player comp, in addition to the home run ability. So we can get to that now if you want. And then I got some stats.
Okay, let's do it. So
let's get to our comps.
So your comp's not, based on what you said, your comp's not Latavius Murray, is it?
No, but that's okay, good. That's a good. It's
I
not
would
that,
say,
but it's along those lines.
Like my thing is, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody make that comp, but it's just a big back who has breakaway speed. Latavius Murray, when he was with the Raiders, he had prime, all that. Yes, but Latavius Murray was also like just one of the more upright runners I've ever seen.
Upright, yeah.
Trey Benson is not that. Trey Benson gets low. Trey Benson, look, he's not known for his like vision either. I think his peripheral vision to find the cutback lane was pretty damn crisp.
Yes.
And I have some clips, man, against Wake Forest and some other clips where his ability to feel the block out was insane. And Florida State, they ran zone, they ran more power gap. They ran a lot of counter, a lot of GT counter. Giants, when Bobby Johnson was here and Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, they're still here. They run a lot of counter, right? Especially back in 2022. Trey Benson's patience and the way he tempos to allow those blocks to develop and manifest, excellent. And I love that about him. And those are little nuanced running traits that he possesses to get the most out of a lot of runs. And I think his vision, and I'm only saying this just because I've heard other people in the draft community talk about his vision negatively. I think it's a little bit better than he's given credit for.
Nice. I love that about that. I love that if that's the case.
What's going on, Big Blue Banter listeners? I'm excited for the football season for several reasons. And one of those reasons is PrizePicks, which is North America's largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform. And it's so simple to use. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including professionals, sharks, and people who are going to exploit you, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you just watch the winnings roll in. It's very simple to play and gives you a little extra skin. I've set my picks in less than 60 seconds. There are so many stats to choose from, and the withdrawals of funds are easy and quick. Dan and I will be adding a segment to our show before every game where we pick our favorite stats, more or less yards or touchdowns, what have you, and we'll be discussing why from a scheme, matchup, and game theory perspective. I love their promotions and how easy their interface is to operate at PrizePicks. I may select more on tackles for a loss from Bobby Okereke or Kayvon Thibodeau next game. They also do other sports as well. It's a really cool experience. Please join Dan and I in the fun of PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/banter and use code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/banter and use code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. You will not regret it. You ever feel sluggish or out of focus? Are you stressed? Has your digestive system caused discomfort or flatulence like a certain co-host on this podcast during a live stream? If so, you should check out AG1. When I started drinking AG1 daily, I could feel a real difference in my daily health. I had more energy, I was better off at the gym, and I could focus on my work in a much more efficient manner. That's because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. Not only did I replace my multivitamin with AG1, but I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. I recommend AG1 to all my family and friends because AG1 has a team of doctors and scientists that formulate around the latest science and maintains high quality standards within the industry. Even my friends have started drinking AG1, and they always tell me how energetic they feel and how it's helped them out at the gym, and also it's helped them manage their stress levels. That's why we're happy to have AG1 as our partner. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. Go to drinkag1.com/banter. That's drinkag1.com/banter to check it out. Our mental and physical well-being is of the utmost importance. Whether you're a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all need to take that very seriously. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Big Blue Banter podcast. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. If you haven't heard of the EE System yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New York, New Jersey, Arizona, if you will, or hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/banter to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/banter. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment. And before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, include EE System.
All right, yeah, let's get to a really good clip and a good example of what you just broke down, Nick. And let's be clear, we'll see if we can keep running clips. There's reasons we may or may not be able to in these breakdowns, but we'd love to run the tape that we've cut up. So we're going to try it again and see how it goes this time versus the last time. And here's an example of what Nick was discussing.
Yeah, this is a good vision. This is just good feel. This is a GT counterplay. We've seen this a ton of times with the Giants out of shotgun. A lot of shotgun runs down there at Florida State.
Shotgun
you
runs.
See the guard with the kick out. You can see 40 kind of overplaying himself, gives this tackle a good angle to also with that hit him with that subsequent block, but you can see how the safety, number 9, quickly fills. Safety gets down there, quickly fills, but Bell does an excellent job from the backside. We've seen Daniel Bellinger did this a lot back in 2022, climbing up, locating him, and then Benson feels all this, because at this point, when Benson gets the handoff, Benson's looking, Benson's waiting for the tackle to kick him out. He has a two-way go. I think Benson's very good on two-way goes. This play might not be the best representation of it, even though it is very good, because there are times where Benson has these two-way goes, and he gets right up into the ass of his blocker and basically forces the linebacker to commit. Just forces the linebacker to commit. I'm either going inside or I'm going outside. And when the linebacker does, Benson will do the opposite. And I think he's very good in those situations, or at least he's flashed the ability to do that very well in certain situations. Now, on this play, 9 is presenting himself like, hey, I'm going to tackle you. But you can see how Benson sees his own number 9, Bell, I think that's 6, whatever it is, locate, climb, and then he just feels it, explodes off the outside foot. And then number 28 tries to undercut and can't, and then Benson just scampers right into the end zone. So that's a nice little inside run, because he's not just somebody who always bounces outside. I agree, and I think you mentioned this a little bit earlier. He does have a small propensity to bounce it outside. It's something that I noted in my notes, but he also can run inside, and he's shown the ability to run inside. I think a little bit better in power gap than zone, but he does have enough vision to where I think if he had more experience rushing zone on outside zone, he would figure it out.
A lot of these guys, by the way, that we're going to study, and I feel like it's maybe true for every draft class, are just better in power gap than against zone, and that could just be an experience thing. But I think you brought up a great point there, because I feel like he does have better vision than he's given credit for too, and that's a great example of that. Look at how he slows himself down, paces his run, tempos that run, and then finds a way to make that cutback. And when you think about it, Nick, it's like, I notice him eliminating space a lot when it comes to the second to the third level. I think his vision is amazing in the second to third level range, where it's now down to the safety, and he sets the safety up to take the wrong angle where he can now maximize the space. And I wonder if the reason a lot of people think that he's has bad vision is because they're just grouping together that he bounced a lot of run outside, and a lot of people will be like, oh, you're bouncing a run outside, that means you have bad vision, and you're not processing where it's going to be opening up. Or if it's just using, when he actually does get the second, like, there are moments where you're like, actually the vision's pretty damn good. Now, the one issue I would have with that is it seemed to be, on more shotgun runs than under center runs, but here's a good example of a good under center run.
Exactly. This is a great example of a good under center run. And it's not clear right now that I paused it where he should go. 75 does a good job finishing off big 99, and he gets football, and you can see he kind of stops using patience, then jukes out. And then at this moment, 9 filled. So 9 is now eliminated as a pursuit defender. And you can see daylight right between his two blockers. So he squeezes through that. And now he sees another pursuing defender, number 3, flowing over the top. And this is what I mean by slasher sometimes, man. Like, I think he's excellent when he is.
Great example of what you're talking about.
When he's slashing through. Now, he doesn't need to, make these Shady McCoy type of moves in this type of scenario. But there are times where he's at the third level and it's him in a safety. And I think he does the best job eliminating the angle, not through just these pure athletic jukes, but more so through how he angles his body and how he shimmy shakes him out, but not necessarily through his lower body fluidity.
Exactly that. It's exactly what you just said. That's exactly where I think his vision is actually good, though, despite, maybe being tagged as not having it at times. All right, so those are good examples. Do you want to get into the comp? I also have a bunch of stats that I want to get into with Trey Benson too.
One more run I'm going to bring up here.
Yeah.
Because we're already probably going to be DM'd.
No, don't say it.
I ain't going to say it.
Maybe they're filtering by that. We don't know.
I just say DM, baby. That can mean a lot of different things. And this is the contact balance. This is the contact balance. Now, I'll say this. I kind of wish I saw a little bit more of this on his tape. If I'm going to be fair, I don't think it's a bad trait that he has, but this play, for his size, this play in particular, where he gets knocked off and he catches himself and then gets himself back on the feet, is something I love. And I will say one more thing about, I don't know if this is contact balance. This isn't contact balance per se. The play you're watching right now is, but when he gets tackled, and you know how sometimes a running back gets tackled and he falls on the defender and his elbows and his knees don't touch the ground, you better ensure this dude's butt, elbow, or knees touch the ground, because he is popping up and he is sprinting no matter what. And there are times where he keeps his elbow off the ground. He keeps his knees off the ground and makes the defense pay. So smart running back in that regard too.
Agreed. There are parts of his game I really, really like. In general, I think I really like this prospect. I don't know yet where I'm ranking my running backs, Nick, and I think it's going to be tough just because I just watched a lot of him and I watch a lot of Benson back to back. It's going to be tough for him to pass Jonathan Brooks for me, because I just like Brooks' style so much more. What'd you say?
Yeah. I still got to watch Brooks.
he's probably my RB1, but if he is, this is probably going to be my RB2. I mean, I'm going to look at some other guys, and I've seen some of a little bit of everyone, but I do like him a lot enough to probably be in that range, Nick. For a class,
you know who I like, who's could definitely be available on day 3?
The Purdue kid.
No, well, I haven't watched him.
Okay.
A lot of him. I watched like one game of him, and I did like how he flashed. Yeah. Estime. I'll drink Estime.
Oh, Estime. Estime's good. That's the style I love too. Where's he going? You think he's going to fall all the way to day 3?
No, he ran like a 4.6 something.
Oh, then
man. He had like the worst testing, dude.
My favorite thing is getting the values, the bad 40 values, because those guys are just overrated. They're dropping literally just because of a 40 time.
I did his evaluation before the combine, and I had, I think, a 3rd round grade on him.
Wow.
And that's in my 3rd round grade. It basically means
potential.
It is, but it's potential starter, right? So it's potential starter. So meaning at the running back position, the way you really look at that, you could be a 1B if you're a potential starter. And I think Estime has that type of upside. But now with these athletic limitations, that might push him down late into day 3. And what kind of opportunities he's going to receive, I'm not sure.
Well, okay. Let me just ask you something. He ran the 4.68. That's what you're saying, right? Athletic limitations for me is not going to be fully based on the 40. Like, was he bad in all the other things?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember coming away with it being like, "Oh man, I'm going to look terrible after
that." I don't love. That I don't love. If he also
so I lied. It really is just the 40, and his broad was 87th percentile, and his vertical jump was 86th percentile. That makes so much more sense to me because he did not
explosive. Yeah.
Yes. He did not look that bad. It's just he had a 10th percentile 40-yard dash. It was actually a 4.71. So that's
that's horrible. 4.71. Like, I'm not trying to minimize it. Like, you now know, like, you don't have a home run hitter. Like, at best, you're going to get like I'm thinking like a Zach Moss type. And that's not my comparison for him at all, but like that type of back. But like, okay, guess what? This game is mostly played at a running back position between 10 and 15, 20 yards. Like, Barkley, 1 year, Saquon Barkley had 9 runs of 40+ yards his rookie year. Guess what? He had 1 total in the last 2 years, Saquon Barkley, and he's viewed as one of the most explosive backs in the NFL. He still doesn't get a chance to do it a lot. McCaffrey gets a few more opportunities than most, a lot, sometimes due to scheme. Like, let's be honest about the situation, but like, winning a 40-yard dash at running back, to me, just so overrated in today's NFL.
Dude, the running back position, and you brought this up with Matt Waldman, and I'm very glad that you did this. It's so much more than the athletic testing than what you used to quantify it as when you would look at the size and speed. Like Kyren Williams, I don't know if he had over a 30th percentile in any of the athletic testing. He had such a terrible combine, and everyone was ripping him apart. My father's a Notre Dame fan, so I watched Kyren Williams, and that's why I watch Estime. Okay. And I try to remain unbiased. Like, I'm not really a Notre Dame. I don't really care too much. Sure. Like, I love college football. I don't have a team that I really root for, but I went in there and I was like, Kyren Williams always good. Like, he tested bad, but like, he was good in college.
Looked
he was
good on tape. Yeah.
Yes, and pass blocking. Pass block.
The pass blocking was his big thing. He was unbelievable at that.
And he's so good at it now. And then you watch him with the Rams. He outran like 5 New York Giants for like 35. You know what I mean? So it's like
he had speed there, right?
He had speed there, exactly. And Estime,
there's also something called like actual play speed with pads, not just 40-yard dash speed, and they're different a lot of the time.
I'm glad we're talking about Estime though, because we're probably not going to talk about him unless we do like a running back show. And he is one of those players where I think like he'll be a day 3 pick and he'll come into camp and people will be like, whatever. But and then he'll be like, oh crap, this guy just rushed for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, on Sunday.
I will say this, Nick, we're going to have a My Guy show at some point. We're going to have a sleeper show at some point. Maybe he makes your list on one of those too. So you might have a chance.
I can't wait for the My Guy show, dude. I have so many guys percolating in my brain right now.
Yeah. And look, maybe he makes one of those lists for you. So let's not rule him out yet. But back to Trey Benson, who obviously does have the 40-yard dash. I want to throw some stats out you, Nick. Oh, we haven't given our comps yet.
We haven't. Okay. You go first.
Okay. I'm going to do my comp for him, and then I'm going to present screen to show you how close they are from an athletic standpoint. Though I have an annoying ad that got put on this screenshot. We're still going to
Is it for Viagra or anything of the like?
No, it's like something from the RA. You'll see.
Are there hot older women in your area?
No,
it's so stupid, man.
I know. All right, let's see if I can get the share screen going here so we can get this up. Okay. My comp for him is the guy you see right there, Kenneth Walker. That's who he reminds me of when it comes to his ability to shake off arm tackles and that explosive home run hitting ability. They were pretty damn close when it came to their athletic comping. Benson's a little bit taller, a decent amount taller, but around the same weight, around the same exact 40-yard dash time, around the same 20-yard split, though a little bit quicker for Walker. And I think Walker is a little bit more home run than Benson. Around the same 10-yard split as well, and then the exact same broad jump and vertical jumps as Kenneth Walker. So very, very similar prospects from an athletic standpoint.
From an athletic standpoint, yes. So I liked Kenneth Walker better than Trey Benson.
Me too.
But I was very high on Kenneth Walker that year. I had him over Breece Hall that year.
I think Kenneth Walker's like a better version to me of what Benson is.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair. Benson is a little bit bigger. I think Kenneth Walker was more nimble than Trey Benson.
Yeah, I can give you that. Yes.
Yeah, it was more nimble. I think Kenneth Walker could make people miss in a phone booth much better than Trey Benson. Trey Benson's a little bit stiffer than Kenneth Walker.
He's not as loose as him. But they both have that ability, like when you try to tackle them high, they do not go down when you try to.
No, they don't like that. They don't like that.
And they got home runs. They got speed. So that was my comp. A lot based on it. But yeah, let me hear yours now.
Lamar Miller.
Lamar Miller. I loved watching Lamar play.
Lamar Miller,
a lot too.
He has the home run ability, and he stop and start, but not necessarily that elusive, shady McCoy. But man, if you gave him a crease, he was gone, bro. I love Lamar Miller at Miami before he went to Houston, and I liked him at Houston. But when he was at Miami, they would give him like 4 carries a game. I think like Philbin was their head coach at the time, and it was like, I guess we got to put Lamar Miller in, and then he would just rush for 60 yards and a touchdown. I was like, use that guy, dude.
Yeah, why aren't you putting him in? Yeah, exactly. I like that comment. I think yours might even be better because of that stop and start ability and a little bit of not upright, but more vertical and not as low to the pad level wise runners. But definitely great comps there. Great comp from you, especially Nick. Let's get into some stats I got of him of Trey Benson. So first of all, I want to say this. It wasn't just I showed you everything there. I showed you the 40-yard dash, the explosive with the broad, the 10-yard split, all of that. But Trey Benson ended up being the 55th most athletic prospect out of 1,804 running backs from 1987 to 2024 with a bad vertical jump. That's how good his profile is outside of the Dalvin Cook and Kenneth Walker vertical jump. So still the 55th most athletic running back. Okay, we got that going first as far as projection goes. Now listen to this, Nick. And this goes into the whole Drake May debate. Like, I want to see all my prospects have better years one year to the next. I always find that there are issues with Drake May, and I think if you want to hear them and what they could be for his projection, go back and listen to our Matt Wallman episode. Matt Wallman does a great job breaking down the downside and the potential risk of May. But the one I don't like is the people who are like, his stats were better in 2022 than 2023. That's bad. You never want to see a prospect go backwards. It's like, okay, well, guess what? Can we at least consider the context? Drake May lost 180 of his targets from 2022 to 2023. Okay, that's bad. How about this? He lost multiple offensive line starters. Okay, that's bad. How about this? He lost his offensive coordinator. Like, he literally had to go to a new system, losing 180 of his targets, and had multiple offensive linemen that didn't return that were starters, in addition to injuries. Like, of course the stats aren't going to be as good. But Benson is another example of this, Nick, because Benson broke records when it came to the 2022 season and then regressed in a lot of those records in 2023. Here are the records he broke, or the record he broke in 2022, Nick. He broke Pro Football Focus's record for the highest forced missed tackle rate in the history of college football, on creating a forced missed tackle on 0.51. Half of his carries, he created a forced missed tackle in 2022. That bested Javonte Williams' best record, 0.48. Behind him was Travis Etienne. Also, if you look at the history of this, Nick, the forced missed tackle rate is one of the most telling advanced stats as far as who's successful and who's not at the NFL level. Can you create forced missed tackles? But in 2023, Nick, that forced missed tackle rate that was 0.51, that record-breaking forced missed tackle rate, dropped all the way to 0.29 in 2023 for whatever reason. He also had 4 yards after contact per attempt in his career. That was 95th percentile. This is a great stat as well. 0 fumbles in 2023. This dude does not put the football on the ground. Yes. 0 fumbles in 2023. Sorry?
No, I said yes. That's an excellent point.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to bring up one thing, though, about the 2022 stats. Now, I agree with you. I don't want to take anything away from him. Just want to say that in 11 rushing attempts against, I don't even know how to say this school's name. I think it's a random school in Iowa. Duquesne, maybe I'll go with. Please roast me in the comments. I'm a loser.
Duquesne? I don't know.
I think it's in Iowa. 11 attempts, 105 yards, and a touchdown, averaging 9.5 yards per attempt with 18 missed tackles. 18 missed tackles in a game on 11 attempts.
Yeah, so they got 18.
Is wild, man.
Yeah.
So it's just for context. I'm not taking anything away from him. He also had 12 against Georgia Tech and then like 10 against Miami. 0 against, well, he only had 4 carries against Wake Forest. I think he got dinged up in that game. But regardless of the fact, 18 is a lot. And it definitely inflates the numbers a little bit.
A few more crazy stats, though. His fumble rate and these are stats that encompass the 2022 and 2023 season, Nick. His fumble rate, 100th percentile, best in the country, 0 fumbles. Zone grade, 94th best. Yards after contact per attempt, 91st percentile. Missed forced tackles per attempt, 100 percentile. We already discussed that. Part of that is that great 2022 season. Rushing grade from Pro Football Focus, 96th percentile. Like, did a really good job, according to them, of maximizing his yardage in the run game. So that's something I wanted to bring up as well. He had 124 forced missed tackles on 310 carries in his career. Just a crazy number to get into that range. Obviously, a lot of that was that record-breaking 2022 season there. But this is a guy who can make people miss. 906 yards last year, Nick. 14 touchdowns. Is a guy in the red zone who converts. 6.11 yards per carry in his career. Pretty damn good, if you ask me, right? So definitely a lot of interesting traits when it comes to Trey Benson. Size, speed, explosiveness, ability to shake off arm tackles, contact balance, got those traits. Pass pro, sturdy, low frame, can get really good there in my regard. Nick likes his hands. Nick likes the ability to adjust in the passing game, so there's upside as a receiver. This could be that type of guy the Giants add and say, now we have a new home run hitter that we put on the field that defenses pretty much have to account for because he can run 4.39 and break this thing open. And yeah, is it as shifty as you want from McCoy? No, but he does have the ability to use his vision on the second and third level and create those angles and erase and ruin angles for these safeties. Now the play's 45 yards and a touchdown, and you might win a 17-13 game that you couldn't really move the ball in.
I'm going to get into my synopsis here, but
yeah,
Duquesne is actually
Ohio.
Pittsburgh.
Damn it. I thought it was Ohio.
So it's in Pennsylvania. I'm an idiot. All right, here we go. Trey Benson has had 2 productive seasons since his devastating knee injury in 2020. He's a big back who thrived in a power gap system with experience in zone. Has explosive long speed, clocking over 21 miles per hour several times in 2023 with excellent acceleration in his second gear. He's flashed excellent vision when sifting through traffic between the hashes, but also had a propensity to bounce runs outside. Consistency on the vision front can likely be improved, but some of the runs listed above, which I have in the report, you find that over at Giants Country. Some of the runs listed above require next level nuance and feel. Overall, I'm not concerned with his vision, and it's enhanced by his patience, timing, and ability to wait for blocks to develop. Benson's combination of size and speed is enticing. He's not a slippery fish in space, but he showed the ability to set defenders up and use his burst speed to break their angles. He wasn't used extensively as a receiver, but looked solid when asked, and his ability to pass protect was functional. The Giants displayed interest in Benson. The Giants, specifically, have many needs on their roster that could be addressed in the second round. It remains unclear if Benson would be available at pick 70 for Big Blue. His capability suggests a day 2 player, and he has starting upside, but the Giants and their offseason moves may suggest running back is more of a day 3 option. I think that segues well into the New York Giants. I'm not sure if you have anything else on his skill set that you want to talk about.
No, I think you covered it great, and I think we've done so throughout the podcast. So let's get into how it applies to the Giants. So we'll start with the first idea. The first idea is, okay, Jonathan Taylor taking around the top of round 2. Amazing draft pick, great value. Kenneth Walker, who we really like, taking around the top of round 2. Amazing draft pick, great value. Maybe not amazing draft pick yet, but I think he'll prove to be. A lot of these great backs are taken in the top of round 2 range. The Giants pick around the top of round 2 at 47. Is he in that range of somebody you consider that would you want to take him at 47 overall? Is he worth that to you? And if so, because Jonathan Taylor I thought was the best running back in that draft class, and I didn't think it was close. And I thought it was stupid that anyone would take DeAndre Swift over him when you watch those 2 tape. And I think it's proven at in the NFL level that just are not even close as running backs. Is this the type of guy who you think can be maybe the best in the class, but also not just the best in the class then at the level of these types of guys?
I have a second round grade on him, and the second round grade is more so about the description. It's will become a future starter. I think Trey Benson will become a future starter. For the New York Giants, with all the needs they have, with how deep this class is at offensive line and at cornerback and at wide receiver, if they forego going wide receiver in the first round, the Giants don't trade back, and it's just they pick somebody at 6, and then they have pick 47, and they select Trey Benson. I think he's a good player, but does that suggest something that Joe Shane would do? With everything that he's shown us so far?
I look at it a little different. I know what you're talking about, and I understand your point of logic, and I don't think it's something I would want to do. I'll get to that. I'll just say it right up top. I don't want Benson at 47 personally for the reasons you basically just said, Nick. In addition to, I don't really feel he's worth 47. I think he's close. I think he's definitely a good, if he's there at 70, which I think is possible, that's when I start to get really interested and would love the pick, but I don't think it's that possible. I think he's more of like 50s to 60 range of where he'll end up going. But like when it comes to the 47 and would Joe Shane do it and would we want to do it? I think they're at a point, dude, where they want some kind of explosiveness on this offense, and they may look at it like this is like our clearest path to getting anything even remotely close to an explosive playmaker in this offense at 47 overall. Because at that point, they may have already taken the receiver, right? Or if they took a quarterback in round one,
which would be likely an explosive player, unless it's
which will be an explosive player.
Yeah, an
still need
explosive
more
player in his own right.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want just one, you need more. And maybe you count Hyde as that, we don't know. And Juan does his own thing. But, you know, at that point, they may, let's say they went quarterback in round one, if it works out the certain way. And now you're looking at it like, shit, Eddie Mitchell's off the board. This guy's off the board. That guy's off the board. We don't really feel we have that kind of explosive playmaker. We can get a McConkey here or a Purcell here who are really good players, or a Roman Wilson or something like that. These are good players, but are they Trey Benson? Are they going to give me a 40-yard touchdown at any point or, break open a game for me and give me the chance to really win a grinded out game where I need a big play? I'm not so sure. And if they feel like he's the guy who can do that for them, I won't be surprised, to be honest, if Benson's the pick at 47. So I think Joe Shane's at a point right now after leaving Barkley where he's like, I need some kind of explosiveness in my offense, and I got to figure out a way to get it fast because we're not scoring any points at all on offense, and we don't really have any threats from a playmaking standpoint right now. And yes, let's say they go receiver. Maybe it's less likely. I'll give you that, Nick. But it's not something I would want to do. Now, the question becomes more interesting, Nick, because I think you said you wouldn't want to do it either at 47. The question becomes more interesting when you consider what Joe Shane did 2 years ago when he had that early round 2 pick and he didn't love what was on the board. And he said, let's keep trading back. And he traded back once and he traded back twice and he gets Wan'Dale Robinson eventually. If Joe Shane does one of those deals where it's like he goes from 47 to 53 and then back to 58 and Benson's still on the board, now I've picked up a couple extra day 2 picks or maybe a day 2 and a day 3 next year and maybe one this year. And now I'm more willing to take that gamble on Benson there. I don't know how you feel about that.
I feel fine about that. Now,
okay, so you're good in the 50s?
I don't want to say, like, I feel fine about that process.
Okay.
I don't know if I would be excited. It really depends on who is still available, right? Because again, man, like, look, Trey Benson is running back. We know how running backs are devalued right now. There are other running backs that are going to be available in the draft later who can come in and might not be able to do exactly what Trey Benson does, but can offer you 70% of what Trey Benson does. The fall off between Trey Benson and that player is so much. The space between those two, it's not that much.
I know.
The fall off between a second round cornerback and Trey Hawkins III,
it's so
catastrophically huge.
It is.
So it's
great point. So you could even say that at times for O-line probably too, but maybe less so. Yeah, but it's kind of
Dude, look at some of these position groups that the Giants have historically over the last decade have needed. The running back position is the one position group. And now I'm just speaking for the Giants. And, you can point at this argument and say it's somewhat illogical. But if you look at the Giants specifically, the Giants have needed so many position groups over the last decade and a half, right? The one position that the Giants have invested way too much in over that time span has been the running back position with the Saquon Barkley selection. And I know
took David Wilson in the first round pick a few years before that, 6-7 years before that.
In 2012. So it's just one of those, I don't know, man. It's one of those things where if Trey Benson is the pick in the second round and they did trade back, I'm not going to throw a fit, but I'm going to probably look at a lot of the other players who are selected and say, damn it,
And I might too, and I probably will too. But at the same time, Nick, I'll do so while also realizing that just knowing how the NFL draft works, dude, a lot of these second round quarters end up just sucking, giving you nothing. A lot of these second round edges end up just sucking and giving you nothing. A lot of these second round linemen end up sucking, giving you nothing. Running backs, like the one of the positions where they usually don't suck when you take them there because they're falling because nobody wants running backs. Nobody wants to take them with their high picks. And they're still just great freaking football players where I'm not so sure the corners there always end up. I know it's not that I'm not sure. I know based on draft history that these corners, a lot of these other position groups are good prospects on paper and they're still good relative to their position, but that doesn't mean they hit at the NFL level. Corner is such a difficult position to play. There's so many second round busts at corner. And there's even more third and fourth round busts. I agree with that. The drop off, still from a value perspective, I still agree with you, Nick. And I think your point is still the number one point. But I understand the idea when GMs take running backs in round 2, because it's like he is the best player on the board by far. And I don't know for sure if this corner is going to even be an NFL player, let alone be good and my best player on the board. And the same goes for basically all the positions. Not all the positions, I shouldn't say that. Like a D tackle, if you take in round 2, you expect him to be pretty good most of the time, for sure. It's not every position.
Yeah, see, like I said, man, I have that second round grade on him. I have a 6.45 on him. I think he's going to be a future starter. So it's similar to Saquon. Obviously, Saquon is a much higher investment, and like I don't think you can replicate just how damaging of a pick Saquon Barkley was for the New York Giants. And I know that's reopening wounds that have since healed. I know that to get into Friedrich Nietzsche. When you look at what they gave up, the opportunity cost, it's catastrophic. So you have to remove that. But it is the sense that the Giants drafted a player, and you got a good football player. We all knew Saquon Barkley was a good football player.
They're also in the sweet spot, by the way, right? Because they were in a period in 2018, the Giants, where you had John Elway as one of the 32 GMs. And no offense to John Elway, he's the reason I love football. He's the reason 7's my favorite number, my lucky number. He's the first player I loved. Yeah, John Elway's the first player I loved. Yeah, I loved the way he played quarterback. He was the first player I loved watching football. So great football player. But as a GM, he was horrific, and they were in that sweet spot, Nick, where he was one of the GMs, and he was in fire off mode for quarterbacks. He was just dumping crazy assets into quarterbacks year after year. Paxton Lynch, the Brock Osweiler, and he was willing to, according to reports, to make a Godfather offer to move up to number 2. I believe he loved Sam Darnold. I'm not positive if it was Darnold or Josh Allen or whoever it was, but reports say he was willing to Godfather offer the Giants up to 2. And I don't need a report to know that John Elway was going nuts for quarterbacks at that stage of his GM career, and he believed that was the only one. He was desperate for quarterbacks. You're getting a Godfather offer from the Broncos to move from 2. What are you going to lose out on? Barkley? Who gives a crap? You didn't win any games with Barkley. You would have lost Saquon Barkley. Great. We lose amazing running back prospect. You know what we would have got? Multiple first-round picks in future years. A late first that year, an early second that year. We're probably taking a tackle or a guard, something that could help us now. So that's what it is.
And it's even worse when you really just step back and you realize, and I don't want to get into this. We've done it so many times.
We can't do too much. Yeah,
I know, but the Giants knew they were in a position where Eli Manning was ending.
And they didn't. Did they know that?
No, they did know it. They did know it. Now, Dave Gettleman said, I think we can continue with Eli, but you knew the guy was well into his 30s at that point. Well, yeah. If you made that trade with Denver or whoever, you would have had so many assets to trade up in the subsequent drafts and get whoever you wanted, right? So it was such a dereliction of duty on Dave Gettleman, and I know we beat up on him in the past, and I get it. But my point is more so that the player is good, but there is an opportunity cost. Obviously, it's not nearly like 2018, but you still need starters at other positions, and you can still get players later in the draft at the running back position who can give you some value. And you already signed Devin Singletary to, what was it, a 3-year deal? Right. You have a competent starter there and a player you invested a 5th-round pick in, Eric Gray, who barely played at all last year. That's why in the 2nd round, when I look at Trey Benson, I'm a little bit like, I'm not going to hate it, and I'm going to root for the player, and I think he's good, but was it the best use of that asset? And Joe Schoen has shown us specifically in this offseason that he prioritizes key critical positions. Running back and safety just aren't those in his mind and in a lot of general managers' minds right now.
I think you're right, Nick, and I think for sure I'm on your side of this. The more you talk this through, the less I want this pick to be our 2nd-round pick. Even if we do trade back, I still kind of feel that you've just talked me into that point. Not saying like you talked me into it. I'm saying you made good points. You made great, astute points, and I came to the decision. With that said, as far as the Joe Schoen line goes, that I'm not as sure on as you are about him not valuing running back. I know he didn't value Barkley as somebody who he wants to invest in long term, who, by the way, Barkley
could just be a cap thing, though, right?
It could be a cap thing. It could be the fact that Barkley has a lot of injuries and is entering age 28 season. It could be a fact that Barkley's yards after contact per attempt is way down. Doesn't really, to me, look the same after contact as he used to be. I don't think he's as powerful and as explosive as he once was. And you know who else said that? What's his name on tape? Who watched this tape and said, I forgot who said that he thought that Singletary gets tougher yards than Barkley. Someone said that recently. A good tape evaluator guy too. But I'm forgetting who. I don't think it was Baldy, so it was somebody else. But Point being, like, I think there were other factors in the decision not to re-sign Barkley. But then he did go out and sign Devin Singletary. Like, if he didn't really believe in this, he could have waited to the back end of free agency and gotten like a veteran who's good in pass pro and like, he'll be your veteran guy, but like you sign him for 1 year, $2 million type of thing.
The signings of Singletary and the offensive lineman, and this is why I really like Joe Shane, because this is process, right? The signings of those players was, I'm just going to provide myself enough flexibility in the draft to maximize my picks and to get the best picks for my roster. I'm not going to be pigeonholed and be in a situation where it's like, well, you know, I kind of have this cornerback a little bit higher than right, but we have fucking Eric Gray starting, so we need to go with the running back. It's giving the general manager in the front office just flexibility to do what's best for the roster moving forward.
Great point. And I agree with that. And that's some reason why I like his process and I like what he's done. Because he had some misses as GM, sure, we all do. But you know what? The process is so much better than what we had. It's not even, it can't even really compare the two. It's that drastic between what we had then and what we have now. But again, I don't want to go too far back into that, because some people, by the way, some people love the talk. Some people dislike the talk. So you never know. You can't make everybody happy, Nick. But agree with you. I don't really want second round capital to be spent on running back in this class, even for a home run hitter like Trey Benson, especially when I know like an Estime is going to be there in round 5. Like, you know, that type of stuff is going to be available.
I agree. So let's do this exercise before we get out of here, right? Trey Benson's the home run hitter in this draft. He is fast and he is explosive. Last year it was Devon Achane. To me, watching the tape, Devon Achane was so much more of a home run hitter than Trey Benson.
You're talking to the number one Achane fan. I loved Achane's tape at A&M. I thought he was better between the tackles than anyone gave him credit for, and I feel like I was that.
See, I didn't necessarily love his tape, but I loved. I knew what he was, and I think he ended up in the best situation.
He did, and I said that was Miami. My perfect fit for that.
But I didn't hate his tape, but it wasn't like, I wasn't like, this is my running back one because of this.
It wasn't my running back one either. Let me be clear. And I didn't, the reason I loved his tape, Nick, is because I always love going this. I'll just give you a little like general consensus thing, or not general consensus, like a overall thing that will continue to happen for us when we do this podcast and we evaluate prospects. Whenever I hear a prospect can't do something or is really bad at something, just based on, I guess, like what people think from their evaluations or whatever it may be, and then I watch the tape and that one thing he's supposed to be really bad at, he impresses me on, and he's better than I expected, and it shows up game after game, I just end up loving those prospects. I feel like they're getting, and that's what I felt like with HN. Everyone was like, he's just a great one cut, bounce outside, home run hitter. And I was like, actually, I kind of love how low he gets through contact and how he interprets the plays in between the tackles. And I just felt like he was better than, like, he was more of a running back than people gave him credit for.
There was a really good running back class too last year. I mean, I liked Jahmyr Gibbs a lot, and obviously Bijan. Everyone loved Bijan, and then it was probably Charbonnet. I had higher than Achane too. Zach Charbonnet, and I'm trying to think of it. I think then it was Achane, and then there was like Chase Brown. Vaughn was like a late guy. Is there another guy?
We're definitely forgetting some running backs from last year. It's impossible to remember.
Kendry Miller from TCU.
Yes, Kendry Miller. A lot of people loved, including myself. That was a good class. That was a much better class than this one. Let's be clear. And by the way, I've already looked ahead. Next year's running back class is supposedly stacked. And I think we had Max on who said that. So that could easily play a factor, and should easily maybe play a factor in us enjoying a second round running back pick, and we probably won't. Now, going back to your point from earlier, Nick, now I really don't want running back second round because I forgot about what Max said. Next year's class looks great. Get me one in round 2 or round 3 next year. Then I'm kind of in that boat, and by that point we'll hopefully have more roster holes filled. And we don't know, but hopefully we're looking at this thing with less of a opportunity cost to take the luxury of the running back.
If we look in our own division right now, man, look at Dallas. Who the hell is their starting running back?
I'm very excited about this.
Rico Dowdle, isn't it?
Yes, and they've had a 30 visit with Benson. They're going to look into all these guys. Ultimately, it's Jerry Jones. I'd be shocked if he doesn't take Jonathan Brooks in round two. Literally round 2.
Wait, time out. Is Jonathan Brooks from Arkansas? If that dude is from Arkansas, went to Texas, that dude is a Cowboy.
Went to Texas from Arkansas, is, in my opinion, the RB1 in this class, but is also coming off a November ACL. And like, you could probably get him in round 3, but Jerry Jones will take him in round 2. The Cowboys will take Jonathan Brooks in round 2, I think, most likely, if he's even on the board.
He's from Texas. Damn it.
Oh, I thought he was from Arkansas too. I don't know. Just based on what you said, but Texas back, doesn't matter. They've already been linked to him, and he is great on tape. But that might happen. But as far as what I was about to say, I'm kind of loving the negative trajectory of the Cowboys right now and where they're at with just, they've been they've been burying themselves from a cap standpoint with just pushing back contracts, pushback contracts, and then dead money, dead cap, 4 years. Now Dak Prescott holds them by the, you know what? Because he's just like, okay, well, guess what? You need to redo this contract. If not, you already have all these void years and dead cap. You're screwed. You basically have to redo my contract and give me what I want. So Dak's going to get like a crazy contract for them, or they let him go and they eat the dead cap, and now they're eating dead cap. And now they have CeeDee Lamb, who needs a new contract, and Micah Parsons, who needs a new contract, in addition to what they're already paying. They had to lose Tyron Smith this offseason because of it. Like, they don't necessarily have a great tackle situation in my mind going into this year, in addition to no running back. Like, kind of nice to see that trajectory go downhill. Now, I personally may see a trajectory of another team in our division go way uphill, unfortunately, if they hit on quarterback, and that's the Washington Commanders with a new owner. That one scares me, and it never has scared me before. All the years of Dan Snyder, I knew I would never have to be worried about Washington in our division. With a new owner, I am a little bit concerned that Washington and Adam Peters, who has a good track record with San Francisco and maybe the next Joe Shane type, I am a bit worried about that, especially if they hit on whoever they take a quarterback at 2. That's different, but I kind of like the trajectory of the Cowboys right now, Nick.
As do I. Yeah, screw the Cowboys. Yeah,
it's kind of not going great for them.
They might lose somebody, man, which is crazy.
They might lose one of Lamb.
I think it's going to be Dak. We talked about this recently.
Yeah, it could just be Dak.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Dak. I do. I think they're going to keep Parsons.
Even then, like, let's say that is the case, Nick. They get Parsons back. Oh, great contract. He's now the highest paid defensive player in football. Oh, CeeDee Lamb, I won the highest paid contract ever, which he deserves. Okay, now he's the highest paid receiver in football. You let that go. Okay, now what? Or now, am I really going to be worried about a team that doesn't have a quarterback? And probably because Dak played there the year before he was let go, they don't have a draft position to draft a quarterback. Maybe they can get the next like Rodgers veteran.
They re-signed Trey Lance, man. They re-signed Trey Lance, and Trey Lance ends up being the dude.
I'll be so mad if Trey Lance breaks out. With
Trey Lance hits with the Cowboys.
Mad if they traded a 4th for him and then get their quarterback of the future. I'm going to be so freaking mad if that happens. That's all I have to say about that.
There is an entire conversation to be had with the veteran quarterback market in today's NFL. Yeah, we are seeing veteran quarterbacks just like Aaron Rodgers did it last year. Done with Green Bay, went to the New York Jets. Now we see Kirk Cousins from Minnesota to Atlanta. Because I mean, Peyton Manning did this. Like, he was the blueprint of it. Right now, it's happened before in history, and you've had success with like Jim Plunkett, who didn't have any success with the Patriots. Joe Montana with the Chiefs. But in today's world, I could see this escalating and more quarterbacks who become, just mutual disagreements. It's not even like they're bad at football, but it's like, you know what, we're going to move on. Time to move on. Like Minnesota, they brought in a new general manager. I think Kevin O'Connell probably wanted to resign Kirk Cousins, but Offensive went in another direction.
Did not want that. Yep.
Mutual respect, whatever. And now Kirk is with Atlanta with a ton of weapons. Holy crap, man. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. That's going to be exciting to see how that works out.
You know what I'm not excited for, Nick, in draft season and just development? Putting aside for a quick second the NFC East side of this debate, and if they go to any of the teams we hate and don't want to get good, I'm not excited for if the quarterback prospects I'm grading high, and I put my foot in the dirt on these pods, and you will eventually too, because we're going to talk quarterbacks. The ones I'm grading high and the ones I'm grading low, the ones I'm grading high goes to the Patriots, but the one I'm grading low goes to the Vikings. I'm just not excited for that backlash. Like, you were so wrong. Like, okay, yeah, I was so wrong. But one of these guys gets Jordan Addison, 2 great offensive tackles, Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson. And the other guy is going to the freaking Patriots with no offensive line, no receivers, and no offense to begin with. Like,
don't you disrespect Pop Douglas?
Don't disrespect who?
Pop Douglas.
Oh, Pop Douglas. Yeah, that's like
Mario Douglas. He's a good player. He's a good player.
Not excited for that, Nick, because it's going to get freaking annoying. So, yeah, man, that's not something I should be worrying about. Let's just worry about the Giants.
No, not at all, man. We've said it so many times. The landing spot for these young quarterbacks,
so important.
It means so much. It really does, because you can go to a team who is just desperate, like the Chicago Bears with Justin Fields, for instance. Justin Fields, to me, I wasn't in love with his tape, and I thought he had processing issues at Ohio State. I thought it really manifested itself if you watch the Indiana and the Northwestern game. If you watch those 2 games that year, you're like, Justin Fields has some issues. But Chicago, their coaching staff was desperate. They needed to select a quarterback to try to salvage and save their jobs. And then the offensive coordinator they brought in for him was just somebody who, they never really tailored the offense for him.
Yep.
So you put Justin Fields in such a lose-lose situation, and the kid never developed on the things that hindered him back in college. And now he gets traded for what, like a 6th-round pick to Pittsburgh. He's 24 years old. There is so much talent there. I hope Pittsburgh, and I hope that works out for Pittsburgh. I do, right? I hope Justin Fields ends up flourishing with them out there. I don't know if that's going to happen per se, but he was just put into a really bad position when you're a young quarterback and that happens, man. It's just, it's not great for you.
I'll be honest, by the way, I feel like just from a pure value standpoint, the fact that the Steelers only had to give up a 6th-round draft pick and $2.5 million in cap space to get Justin Fields was one of the best plays of the entire offseason from a value
100%
standpoint.
agreed, man.
I'm kind of angry, Joe Shane. Not angry, but I'm like a little disappointed Joe Shane to do that. I think the circumstances are different for the Giants and Steelers because, you could walk right into Justin Fields. And I know if you followed the story, Justin Fields had some say in where he was traded to, which was kind of nice by the Bears GM. I don't think it was the
good
best
job
play.
by Ryan Pace, yeah.
I guess I don't love that personally. I feel like I'd be like, I'm sorry, man. This is my business, and I got to maximize my team. I got to get the best offer I got to get. I'm very sorry.
But we don't know if that didn't happen because the market wasn't there.
It wasn't a great market to begin with, right?
So, I think it was probably all comparable picks to the point where,
Now, tying it back for a quick second, the point being, you have a different scenario you present to Justin there. You're saying it's Russell Wilson, where he's at in the back end of his career. You're probably going to get a chance to play right away. With the Giants, it's honestly, if Daniel Jones is healthy, he's going to be the QB1. And that's just how it's going to be. It did now. If Daniel Jones fails, they would have had given Justin Fields a chance if they had traded for Justin Fields. But he was going to get a shot, Daniel Jones, and it was going to be the QB1 no matter what to start season. I'm not sure Russell Wilson's going to be the QB1 no matter what to start the season for Pittsburgh. I think Justin Fields is going to get a chance to literally beat him in training camp in the preseason. And so I think Justin Fields has a more realistic chance to play week 1 for the Steelers, and I think that appealed to him, and I think they made that happen. We don't know if Joe Shane and Brian Dable were even interested in Fields to begin with. And I don't love Fields or anything. I just feel like a 6th-round pick and $2.5 million cap hit from a value standpoint at the quarterback position for a 24-year-old who can, at any point run for 65 yards and a touchdown.
I was going to say, we were looking for explosive playmakers. You could put the guy out there in the slot.
Yeah, run like wild. You should run like a wildcat or something.
Nuts.
Run like a trick play offense with Jones and Fields. Both of them can run. You just got reverses and you throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage to Fields all the way over on the right, and then he throws it upfield. I also, by the way, I think laterals are very underutilized in the NFL, but that's just my own. That's another topic for another day. I feel like a good coach could figure out a sick lateral system where you're running curl routes and then you're hooking. You can't just be at the end of the game when everyone knows it. It has to be sprinkled in when people aren't expecting it. And if you had 2 throwers, what'd you say?
When Jason Garrett tried to use Kadarius Toney in that manner.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. That was fun.
Jason Garrett. Okay. Yeah. That's a throwback. I do remember.
That was the only time we were like, Jason Garrett, wow, he did something other than just stick concepts.
Yeah. There was a couple times, not much, but where I liked when he strung together and did what we talk about always, marrying the run game to the passing game, where he showed something in the run game and brought it back.
The Carolina game was his best.
He had a couple good game plans, and I feel all the years with our bad O-line, he did a good job of negating the tackles in the Washington game, and not just by quick hitting throws, but this is nothing to really write home about. He didn't really do anything too great in either of those examples. So we don't need to harp on Jason Garrett. Anyway, back to Trey Benson. I think we're both kind of out on the round 2 discussion at 70 at that point, Nick, and I don't necessarily think he's going to be on the board, but weirder and crazier things have happened and people need other positions. At 70, where are you at with Benson?
I wouldn't hate it.
Okay.
I don't think, but a lot of it depends on who's falling. And again, I don't know anything about Trey Benson, the person. If he has that Saquon Barkley type of personality, which is very important, right? If he has that type of work ethic and that type of coachability, and he has the upside to be a leader in the locker room, then yes, New York Giants do what you have to do to bring in an explosive playmaker at the running back position to pair with Devin Singletary, who I think could be an excellent veteran presence to get the most out of this player, Trey Benson. So but again, man, I do think there's going to be players that I'm going to be like, we're passing up on that, but it's so much better than the second round. I'm not really about the second round as we've said, but I'm open to the third round.
You convinced me on round 2, but we're still going to be different on round 3. If Trey Benson's pick at round 3, I love the pick. I go from not even to love, because to me, when you get to 70, now you're really talking about a lot of busts at that pick. You might see a corner you love, but then he's the next Cordell Flott. You might see a guard you love, but he's Ozudu. And it's not just using Giants examples. You go to look at any team, and I'm not saying to you, I'm just saying to the listeners, there's just so many busts when you get outside the top 50.
So for me, the way I'm thinking about this, and it's just based off this draft class, I think there are interior defensive linemen who could be available at that pick, who could have a really important impact in a rotation, possibly starting depending on what the Giants do in the draft, obviously. And then safety position too. Like I don't think there's going to be a lot of safeties chosen in the top 60. Maybe Tyler Nubin from Minnesota, and there could be if Tyler Nubin is there, like from what I've seen from him watching Minnesota defense. That guy moves very well. And if he falls that far, which I don't think he will, but he could, because this safety class is pretty booty, right? But if a team is really desperate for a safety, they would probably go in that direction. Even like a Cole Bishop from Utah is somebody that I really like. So there are other like position groups that aren't necessarily of high value that I would consider, but I wouldn't hate it at 7.
We have a little, it's not even a difference. Just like I get a little nervous and scared about DBs and in general in the draft. I've had my misses with Ashton Davis. I just think when you get to these range of like the second and third round DBs, like it's scary a little. Early second, sure. Like an Antoine Winfield falls, and I loved his tape. Fine.
Watch Tyler Nubin.
I do have to watch Nubin, and we'll see if I just love him.
He's another Minnesota Golden Gopher too.
Right. And they comes from that system. But the way I was thinking about it, yes, opportunity cost is lost. So like it wouldn't be like I wouldn't want a Braylon Allen at 70. I wouldn't be thrilled with that. But just the fact that Trey Benson, you said it in your synopsis earlier, you view him as a potential starter at the next level. I agree. I think he's likely to be a starter while also offering home run speed in addition to starter. So just those two things he offers to the Giants that they don't currently have. Starter plus with home run ability. That's why I get excited. But we'll see. I don't know if it'll be on the board at 70. It's possible, though. Same thing when you don't know. These running backs and safeties, dude, they just fall in drafts sometimes because you get to, and people are always wondering why. Why is somebody who's you had a good grade on this guy? Why is he falling all the way into the 70s? And it's like, well, guess what? Everybody only has like a pick around. So it's like they probably get to their pick and they're like, we love Trey Benson or whoever the prospect would be. We love this running back prospect. We also really need a safety and we really like him. Now they've gone 2 rounds and they don't have a running back. So it's basically it just falls based on that people really only have like a pick around and they don't always want to use their first or second pick at running back.
And again, another reason why I'm a little bit hesitant with him is that devastating injury. Like that's a whole
other thing, right? Yeah. And that's up to the doctors.
Yeah, we'll never know, anything about that. But he has 2 years playing at a high level, but never had more than 20 carries. He only had 20 carries the one time. So
that's a problem for me too. Yeah.
Little bit of a lighter workload, but everything that you discussed, I think the receiving ability is there. I think we probably haven't seen as much of it as we'd like, but that's not his fault. Sure. I think he can pass protect. I think his angles are sometimes a little off. I think he identifies well in pass protection. He has the frame and the play strength to anchor down to be a solid pass protector. I think his vision is underrated. He has breakaway speed. I think he can run inside. I think he's best in power gap. We've seen Carmen Brasillo run a lot of power gap. We've seen Mike Kafka and Brian Dable run a lot of power gaps, specifically counter. Florida State ran a ton of GT counter. Yeah. The Giants run a ton of GT counter. They run a ton of GH counter. I think the patience and the tempo Trey Benson is used and the vision too. I know counters typically, you're going to hit the hole off the kick out and you're going to follow your block. Sometimes he doesn't do that. Sometimes he'll deviate from that, but it's because because he has that vision and that feel, and he'll see the linebacker scrape over the top. Talk about the cat and mouse game all the time, Dan. He is very good at the cat and mouse game behind the line of scrimmage. And those are all reasons why at 70, I would be fine with that pick. I just hope all the medicals check out. And then the Giants will have the running back for the next 4 years, along with a very, very good complement. That'd be a really good 1-2 punch, Singletary and Trey Benson.
With Gray as a change of pace as well, potentially, if he can reach his potential, I'd say. All right, that's all we have.
One more thing, actually. One more thing, just on Eric Gray.
Yeah.
So he didn't really show anything, obviously, in year 1, but I wonder if Joe Schoen is willing to give him, I don't know would Joe Schoen, they're already suggesting that they would. Right, bring in Trey Benson because they brought him in for a top 30 visit, I believe, and they've had all this link between. I think Aaron Wilson is who you said that link was there. But you're basically saying at that point, if they do that after signing Devin Singletary, that Eric Gray is a wasted pick because what are you doing with him? Or Gary Brightwell gone, but Gary Brightwell at least has special teams upside,
special teams value. Yeah. I think
that might be a little harsh, but is it?
Yeah. It's not totally harsh because the Bills did when they were. I'm looking at the Brandon Beat blueprint. He took Singletary and he took Moss back-to-back years in a similar draft range. Then he took James Cook a year or two later, but then they moved Moss before they took Cook. But I think they actually traded for that Nyheim Hines.
Well, they did, but that was a special teams thing, and Singletary was already gone when they took him.
Singletary was gone by then, so they haven't really had more than 3.
James Cook, no. Singletary he might have still been there, was he? Because James Cook is in his second season or going into his third season?
He's going into his third.
Singletary was there for 1 year, but they weren't
a little bit. Yeah. it overlapped a little bit there, but I don't know if they've ever had 3 of those guys on the roster at once. So you might be onto something there. I don't know. I don't like if they had all 3 of those guys and like you got to maybe you don't keep Gary Brightwell at that point, but maybe
Could
you
be that.
do. Like you still could then go extra running back. I don't know. It is an interesting point though that you made. Like I don't know if that because Singletary's locked in, right? And then where does that leave Gray if they take somebody like a Benson?
It's the roster gymnastics because last year
Yeah,
they decided to go with the 3 tight ends, and I think they're
right.
going to go with more 3. They should go with more 3 tight
At
ends.
least 3 this year. It's a
Yeah.
minimum of 3. I don't think I think both Stahl and Manners are going to make the roster, and then it's like if Waller decides to play, now you got 4.
If they bring in a rookie quarterback, say Michael Penix a little bit later
Yeah,
in the draft, or if they do select one in the first round, then that's going to be an extra quarterback that you're going to have to
you have
carry.
to
So they
carry.
have to cut a position somewhere. And if you
True.
were to draft Trey Benson, let's say, then that's certainly going to come at the running back position. You're not going to carry 4 running backs
True.
with 2
With the
newcomers.
quarterback, yeah, with the 3
But-
quarter.
But we also have to consider this too. I know we're going a little long here, but we have to consider
Okay.
the fact that over the last 5 years, the New York Giants, 5-6 years, the New York Giants had Saquon Barkley. They had a true bell cow running back who they were saying this guy's getting 75% of the touches out there. They don't have that right now. It could be a much more committee approach, which could lead to maybe a Trey Benson, Singletary, and then 2 other backs.
Which, by the way, thank God. I'm ready for the committee approach. I've never been a lead guy in my. I don't like building rosters around lead dudes in the running game. That's just like the injury rate and the contracts and the cap standpoint. Just give me the committee. I've been asking for a committee for years. I'm happy we're finally doing the committee. Honestly,
yeah, we're not paying a buttload of our cap either to it.
Exactly, as it should be. All right, that's how we have it here on the Big Blue Banter podcast. That was a profile on Trey Benson. Thank you so much for tuning in. More content coming, a lot more content coming in the next, however many days until the draft. We're really excited for it. So thank you. Please subscribe. Please like if you're on YouTube. If you're on podcast, please make sure you have set up for auto download and download. Don't just play and listen. Please download. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.